So the story goes that there was enough oil to rekindle the lights in this menorah for one day, but it would take 8 days to get more oil to rekindle the whole thing and get it going again. And so the great miracle of Hanukkah is that this little vial of oil lasted 8 days until they could get more oil. And that's like this great sign of God's presence in the Hanukkah story.
Hello and welcome to It Means What It Means, the podcast in which a guy with some college and a day job has long-form conversations about biblical texts. Today's guest is Stacia Deutsch, and we'll be discussing Hanukkah. I have not done a Hanukkah episode so far. I think I said this in the last episode, outro. I was hoping, when I was looking at 2025, to do an episode for each day of Hanukkah. And I realized I should probably set my sights on a more realistic goal. So I went poking around on Amazon to find what I felt like was a good children's book that I could use as a model, as a jumping off point. A children's book because if you're Jewish and you celebrate Hanukkah, you're probably going to want to teach your children. And so for someone like me who's never celebrated Hanukkah, I don't really know that much about it on the life lived level of it. I figured I would go ahead and start there. So I enjoyed the conversation very much. I look forward to having Stacia back on to talk about any of her over 100 books, which is crazy to me. But yeah, she is a professional writer. So you'll hear more about that in the conversation. If you're listening for free, please subscribe wherever you are. One step further that would be very helpful is, comment, review, rate, all that kind of thing. An additional step beyond that in support would be go over to Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, whatever social media platforms there are out there, Spoutable, Threads, Twitter, Blue Sky, follow and send me guest suggestions there or feedback there. If you don't want guest suggestions and feedback to be a public thing, that's fine. You can reach out to me at itmeanswhatitmeans@gmail.com. That's all one word, itmeanswhatitmeans@gmail.com. Or the ultimate support would be becoming a Patreon supporter for $5 a month. That would really help. The more Patreon supporters I can accumulate, the more likely it is that I can do this as a day job, which is an aspiration of mine. It's something that I hope to be able to do in the years to come because I really do enjoy reading people's work and talking to them about their work, whether they're academics or, in this case, a children's book writer. This is something I think it's a lot of fun, and I'd love for it to be a hobby that can help pay the bills around the house. So that is all the yapping from me. I will be back at the end of the episode to set up the next episode. Enjoy. Stacia Deutsch, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, good morning.
Before we get going, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so you said my name great, Stacia Deutsch. I am a children's book author. I was ordained as a rabbi. Coming out of college, I was ordained as a rabbi from Hebrew Union College, which is the Reform Movement's rabbinical seminary, in 1995. I went on to practice being a rabbi. I was a rabbi in Dayton, Ohio, and then back at Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion. I ran their programs. And sometime after that, I just got obsessed with writing and got this bug in my ear, and I wanted to start writing children's books. So now I am the author of hundreds of kids' books. I've been on the New York Times bestseller list 3 times under my own name and once more as a ghostwriter for a celebrity. I know, I can't even say 4 I've been on the list 4 times. So that's cool. And I live like this blended life. So it's a good place to be. A little about me.
Nice. Is that, hold on, hundreds of books? Is that hyperbole?
It is not.
Wow.
It is not. I'm in this really amazing kind of rare space where the publishing houses contact me when they need books. So I write a lot of what's called intellectual property, which is their ideas, or licensed properties, which means I've written stories for Lego, TV shows, movie novels, and a lot of what I do is that kind of work. Yeah.
I feel like there's a whole other interview there. So we may set that up. I'm trying to broaden the aperture of the podcast, so we may set that up later if you're interested.
I'm all in. Talk about myself? Really? Oh, okay.
I would, yeah, this sounds really interesting. But today we're going to be discussing your book, Celebrating Hanukkah, History, Traditions, and Activities, a holiday book for kids. And so, just real quick, on my end of this, most of the guests that I've had on have been, still are, and probably will be biblical studies, academics mostly. And so when I first started thinking, like, I want to cover things like Hanukkah, my first instinct was to say, like, oh well, I'll find out if somebody wrote a book about like the Maccabees or something. But that felt really like it feels unapproachable to start there. So I just went on Amazon and started searching, and your book caught my attention as, like, you know what? I'm not Jewish. I've never celebrated Hanukkah. I don't want to start with an academic approach. I want to start with a very ground level. How would you introduce someone? And so within Judaism, you would want to start as a child, right? So
Yeah, that's very interesting.
I figured, you know what, this looks like a good, and thank you for accepting my invitation to come on and talk about this. So we'll start where you start in the book. What is Hanukkah?
Well, first, you made me panic because I am not an academic. Um, I have quite a few graduate degrees. I like school. I really, really like school. But I would never consider myself an academic. And a book on the Maccabees would honestly be really interesting. So when you invite somebody to do that, call me so that I make sure that I'm one of the first listeners. Okay, so just a little bit about what is Hanukkah. Hanukkah is the Jewish winter festival. Corresponds often with Christmas. So I think that we get this like whole Hanukkah Christmas or Christmaka kind of thing going here. But Hanukkah is a festival on its own. And it is the commemoration of a battle that the Jewish people won thousands of years ago, like most of Jewish festivals. We hold tight to our history and our wins. And this is Hanukkah's like, I mean, I would love to have more of an academic view on it, but let's talk a little bit just about like what Hanukkah is then for us. So Hanukkah is a celebration that goes over 8 nights. Each night you light a candle in a menorah so that by the last night you have all 8 candles burning brightly. And just, I think, taking from the traditions that are around us, Hanukkah has become a gift-giving holiday. So now we're well into the commercialism of wrapped packages, cute songs by Adam Sandler, all the trappings that make Christmas what Christmas is. Hanukkah is now that for the Jewish people.
And a movie.
Yes. Lots of that. Yeah. And I mean, Hallmark is all in on Hanukkah nowadays. So every year there's like 1 or 2 Hallmark movies, romance Hanukkah movies as well. So yeah, it's become so much more than what it was in its origin. And I find that to be really, really interesting. But it's also a tale of what happens in the modern world, right? Like, so we have this festival, we're surrounded by, I'm not even going to say Christmas as a Christian practice, because we all know that Christmas has become way more than religious observance, right? And Hanukkah just went down that same path. It's highly commercial, but it's based on a historical story.
It is the commercialization. Is that more an American thing? Is that applicable globally to your knowledge?
Yeah, it's pretty applicable globally. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we're surrounded by cultures that want to celebrate that winter time, winter solstice, have something to commemorate during the time when things, are traditionally cold and dark and bleak. So Hanukkah's just become part of that milieu. Yeah. Yeah,
But as far as its origins go, and I didn't know that. So I knew about, the oil in the temple and Antiochus and all that kind of stuff. I did not know there might be a connection to Sukkot. Can you go into that?
Oh, I'm like surprised at your question. Yes, I love this. So Sukkot is a harvest festival that takes place in September, October. The Jewish calendar is tied to the moon cycles, so holidays tend to shift constantly. So when I say Sukkot, it falls at the same time on the Jewish calendar every year. Hanukkah falls at the same time on the Jewish calendar. But when you juxtapose it over the calendar that we all use, it tends to move. So Hanukkah could be anywhere from November to December. Sukkot, which is this harvest festival, September, October. So I actually love this, trying to come at it from two angles. So there really are two stories of Hanukkah, right? And all of this influences how we commemorate and celebrate. So there is the history story is that there was a time where there was a ruler, a Seleucid ruler over Judea, and the Antiochus the third was fine with Jewish religion. He let people practice. His son came in and did not let Jewish people practice their religion anymore. In fact, he went to conquer the holy building of the Jewish people in Jerusalem, the Great Temple. And some people died, and some people converted, and some people were assimilated, and some people fought. And Hanukkah is a commemoration of that battle where the Maccabees, who were the fighters, they were the zealots. They were probably the people we would want to avoid nowadays. They were like the crazy zealots. They conquered the temple, they reclaimed the temple, and then they rededicated it. So that is one story. And that is written in the book of Maccabees, and that is like the base for it. 600 years later, the rabbis who were creating this body of literature called the Talmud didn't love that the story was a war story. That wasn't where they wanted it to be. They wanted it to be a God story. So for some it's true, for some it's not, but they rewrote the story based on this war. So now we have this overlay, and Jared, just tell me if I'm getting confusing, because to me it makes all sense. So they have this overlay on top of this war story where at the end of the battle, there was a great menorah. And in the temple at the time, there would have been a 7-branched menorah, and it would have been lit to recognize the presence of God in this holy space all the time. But at the end of the Hanukkah story, when the Maccabees reclaim the temple, the menorah's out. So the story goes that there was enough oil to rekindle the lights in this menorah for one day, but it would take 8 days to get more oil to rekindle the whole thing and get it going again. And so the great miracle of Hanukkah is that this little vial of oil lasted 8 days until they could get more oil. And that's like this great sign of God's presence in the Hanukkah story. So we have two overlaying and sometimes conflicting stories, right? But the one now that I think that most people, and we're talking, you mentioned it from a kid's perspective, most kids are taught is this oil story, that there was this great battle to reclaim the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. And when they did, they discovered there wasn't enough oil for the lights. They used this one little cruse of oil, and it lasted 8 miraculous nights. So now we get into the traditions of Hanukkah, which are all based on this Hanukkah miracle story.
I like that at its heart, it's a supply chain issue that feels relatable, given what the last 5 years or so have been. globally for us. So the menorah in the temple had 7, but
Yeah.
Hanukkah menorah has 9, right?
So 8 nights, right? So now we are separating between a Hanukkah, which is the Hanukkah menorah, even though people tend to use the word interchangeably, it should not be. The Hanukkah is the Hanukkah menorah. I'm like holding my fingers up for the podcast world, which has 8 nights. And then there is a shamash, the leader candle, which is set aside. It does not count with the other candles. It is used to light each candle. So it's usually a little bit higher, set off from the other candles, and that's the one that is like not part of the tradition, not part of the holiness. That is the candle that you use to light the rest.
Stacia, be as visual as you want. If they want to see it, they can pay $5 a month. otherwise, they could just listen and be left out. Um, I'm done. I'm done hiding it. So each night you start with new candles, correct?
Yes,
And to
because
which
part
you
of the
even put a math problem in your book. Which, come on,
you like that? Is that the academic
yeah,
thing?
yeah.
My mom's a math teacher. Yeah. So yes, it. And I love that this whole question, like how many candles do you need for Hanukkah? So each night you're adding one and you're letting them burn down all the way to the base, and that's part of the tradition. Um, and it takes, I don't know, about 30 minutes for the candles to burn down. And the more religiously observant you are, the more important that is. Like, how long do the candles have to be lit, and how long does it take to burn down, and what if they burn down too quickly? La la la. For those of us like me that are liberal Jews, we're not counting every second that they're burning. But you add a new candle each night. So for your viewers, the math then is 8 nights plus a shama every single night. So the first night is 2, the next night is 3, the next night is 4, the next night is 5, right? How many candles do you need in a box? Well, the grocery store has done the work for us.
So that was one of the questions I sent you. Like, are there? I guess I've never looked for it. There are packs of candles that are Hanukkah friendly. You're saying?
44 candles in a box.
Well, okay. And that is I don't actually have the number available in my head. So it is.
I just know that, but don't do the math. Maybe it's not. I don't know. No, it's true. 44 candles in a box. And, but some boxes will give you like an extra one, because now I'm going to send you to the store, Jared. They're cheap. You can buy a box of Hanukkah candles. They're made kind of flimsy. And when you shove them into the little holes, one of them tends to break. So some boxes come with 45, or you always seem to have extra from the year before, and I don't really know how that
It's
might
the
be
magic of Hanukkah.
Exactly. I don't know where that comes from, the extra ones, but yeah, you tend to break quite a few. They just don't shove into the little menorah holes very easily. Yeah.
Yeah, look, that made me hold on. I'm like, if they're giving me the exact number, that makes me feel panicky. Just for a whole lot of reasons. It's the way I pack. It's the way I think. I show up everywhere early. Yeah. No, that's
Don't worry,
okay.
you'll have some from last year. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What if? I mean, it would be ironic, and it sounds like a Larry David kind of thing. That like you run out of candles and you can't get more for 8 days. Yeah. So are I had this question around places where Judaism has been banned. So, I mean, 1930s Germany or something. Um, does that kind of, I guess now you're in a position where celebrating your tradition is subversive. Has that had much of an influence on Hanukkah celebration?
So not it's an interesting question. I'm just going to tell a story. So I went with my son a couple years ago to Vienna, which I'm going to say is one of the most beautiful cities I've ever been in my whole life, with such a conflicted history, right? Like so painful to walk around and see these little stones in the in the sidewalks where Jewish people had lived. And it's a gorgeous city. And I like sometimes like half joke, I guess I say, if the Holocaust were today, I would be the last person in Vienna going, it couldn't happen here. This city's awesome. But we went into an antique store and they had a table with some Nazi memorabilia, like just antique kind of, buttons, something with an eagle on it. And on the same table, the exact same table, they had a menorah that had been made in one of the concentration camps out of a piece of wood with bolts glued down or somehow glued down onto it. So we know that even in times of persecution, it's been important enough for people to try and find a way. There are some books like, and who knows like whether they're true or not, about like finding I don't know, people finding a box of matches in a concentration camp and then just lighting one match for each night. Like holding on to this to try and or people just holding up fingers, like all this kind of stuff, because Hanukkah is at its core a religious holiday, even though it might be fun and festive and now has like taken on this whole like let's celebrate all of December Hanukkah kind of thing. At its core, it's a religious holiday. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess we look back at through the era and we can say like there have always been times of persecution for Jews. There's always been places in the world where being Jewish is difficult or if not impossible. And this is just one of those other holidays that has sustained that. I mean, even for my own family, and it's kind of like a divergent kind of thing. I always say, I'll look at my parents. And when I spit into an ancestry tube, I am 100% Ashkenazi Jewish. So that's European Jewish. I say I'm a thoroughbred, but it's amazing to me that means in every generation, in every time of persecution and trouble, somebody in my chain felt like this was important enough to sustain it. So when it's so much easier to give it up, to convert to whatever is going on around you, to assimilate fully, somebody in my chain said that this was really important. And so then for me, it becomes really important as well. And Hanukkah is just part of that. It's one of those other pieces of the greater puzzle. Jared, can I go back for a second? Because I'm realizing I never answered the Sukkot in December question.
Good. Yeah. We can go over where you want.
I mean, as long as I'm thinking about like holidays and the importance of holidays, I totally missed this. I'm sorry to all of your listeners who are like,
don't apologize to them. They knew what they were. If they've ever listened to this before, they knew what they were getting into.
Okay. So like, as I'm thinking about just the importance of holidays and the importance of our commemoration, it reminded me, like I started talking about Hanukkah, but what I missed was during this time when the Jews were not allowed into the temple and all things had stopped under during that period, right before the Maccabees came in and like tried to reclaim the temple, all Jewish holidays had stopped. So imagine, like, this is where I was just getting with my head, this great time of persecution where Jews weren't allowed to celebrate anything. So there is a theory, and it's probably academically, this is probably the closest to truth, that it says in the book of Maccabees, which when you do your Maccabee lecture, the book of Maccabees is not canonized for whatever reason. And that's a whole nother thing that you should ask at academic, somebody who like really delves into that. But in the book of Maccabees, which is where the Hanukkah story is retold, the historic part of the Hanukkah story, it says that when they got the temple back, they celebrated in certain ways that are reminiscent of the holiday of Sukkot, this earlier harvest festival. So there is the theory that they couldn't celebrate Sukkot at the time of Sukkot in September, October, so they celebrated it in December. So Hanukkah is really Sukkot in December. That could make children cry because they just want Hanukkah to be Hanukkah.
But it is now.
But it is now. Whatever it was in the past, it could have been, though, Sukkot in December. Probably most likely.
So I don't know if this is a helpful point, and I'm going off memory here. So Antiochus the Fourth, the son of Antiochus the Third.
Mhm.
Antiochus the Third basically got his the place that he ruled when Alexander the Great died, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yes.
Okay, so I'm hoping that's helpful as a framework for like this is where it happened in history. Whether it happened as like a second Sukkot that ended up taking on a life of its own, which I mean that's okay. If that is if there's some kind of historical investigation that delves into the origins and they find out well this is what it actually came from, but then it became a different thing, I think that's pretty interesting. And I think there's an aspect of Judaism here that this is different than the Christian tradition that I came from because um specifically something like Hanukkah, whether it evolved into specifically what we have now, it's not necessarily just like the religious aspect isn't necessarily just a question of belief. There is like a communal cohesion in participating in that, right?
Yes, for sure.
And I'm not saying that doesn't exist with Christianity, but it's just that like Christian traditions are kind of diffuse to the point that like I think Charles Dickens has more to do with modern Christianity than theology, because most American Christians are Protestant, and it wasn't even considered a Protestant holiday until sometime I think in like the 19th century, and it has become a commercial thing, and it's not really nailed to like the or associated with a liturgical calendar in the way that it is for I guess other like Catholic or Orthodox Christians. So it's similar, but it seems more diffuse. And I know that there are Jewish denominations, excuse me, Jewish denominations, but this seems to be like the whether it's Rosh Hashanah or Hanukkah, these things are tent poles that kind of unite you guys. Again, is that fair to say?
Yeah, invite me back for Passover. Passover is said
Yeah.
Passover is said to be the most widely commemorated Jewish holiday by people who are either who could be very, very traditionally observant and people who are not. It brings together families over another, I like to call it cosplay. All of our holidays are kind of cosplay. You are reliving the experience of the ancestors. So Passover is another one where we have this great Seder and you eat the bread that they would have eaten, the thin matzah that you would have eaten in the desert. I mean, yeah, all of our holidays kind of have this like cosplay element, but the holidays, and you're right, there are tentpole holidays, I think, that bring people together in community. And it doesn't necessarily have to be community in a synagogue or temple setting. Hanukkah, Passover, these are home holidays that bring people together. And I mean, whether you do one night of Hanukkah or 8 nights of Hanukkah, I mean, I love it at our house. Like when the kids were little, it literally takes 3 minutes. Like you're going to light the candles. I'm going to force you to sing a song and then you're going to get your present and be off to your date, like whatever. But it's those moments that are super important. So not just on a family basis, but then you imagine like globally people are doing the same thing, and that's really cool. And again, I can pull this all back, like when we talk about the Holocaust and we talk about times of persecution and we talk about survival, like what cooler like image of survival is there than people around the globe lighting menorahs for Hanukkah? That's amazing. The fact that it happens at all is amazing, and I love that. It makes it really important to me.
It, yeah, it man, the cohesion there. You sent me back in time to when I was a kid, and Christmas morning meant like I wake up early all the time, no matter what. But I was up early, but had to wait for my parents to get up to get their coffee, whatever, and then we would like open our presents, and we had to show it for the picture, and it was a much longer, more laborious process. And make sure you put that tag on there so you can thank Grandma. I don't want you to forget what she got you. And you're saying yours is quick, but I don't know that another family was necessarily doing the same thing on Christmas that my family was doing. And so there isn't quite the unifying thing there. But there are other aspects of it that I'm curious. How did it, like Sadaka? Am I saying that correctly?
Mhm. Yeah.
How did that become a part of Hanukkah?
So there's a charity element of it. Actually, I was thinking I think that Jewish life has a charity element to it. It's such an important part of Jewish just culture, that it's also become part of Hanukkah, which is like you're giving and you're receiving, right? But you're also giving at the same time. So tzedakah, or giving to charity or to those less fortunate or people in need, has become part of the holiday experience. I mean, I was also thinking, like, we haven't talked about like the foods of the holiday, which again can be quick or long, the but the foods of the holiday also tie back into this story. So we eat things that are deep fried because of the story of the oil. So potato latkes became kind of an Eastern European thing because that's what was cheap and readily available. So it's grated potatoes and a little bit of breadcrumbs an onion maybe. Now you can make zucchini and carrots and whatever fancy latkes like strike you. But deep fried in oil. And in Israel, it's donuts deep fried in oil. Although we all love a good Krispy Kreme at Hanukkah time. Um, and then there's giving charity, and then there's playing games. So your celebration can be longer if you want, and you want to have one really nice dinner, or you could have 8 nights of really nice dinners. But I think that giving charity is a big part of just Jewish life in general. I do feel like I'm like head skipping here, but I was talking to my dad the other day, and my dad always says something to akin to, everybody can give to the Red Cross. Anybody can give to these other charities, but Jewish charities will only survive if Jewish people step up and support them. And where did he get that from? That's probably been passed down from ancient times as well. My dad probably heard it from his dad, who heard it from his dad, who heard it from his dad. And so this tradition of giving, I think, is such a big part of our Jewish values.
And so to go back to the Seleucid thing, this
Mhm.
is kind of relevant. So like Antiochus the Third is like one in a long, a long list of names who their empire just runs on. Believe what you want to believe, do what you want to do, as long as you pay your taxes, we're fine. And then the empire ended up being what they call syncretistic, and a lot of the conflict for people who lived in Judea or whatever centered around, well, we're not even sure that we're on board necessarily with that because of the unique nature of the practices that were required to do. And I think as you end up, Jews end up spread around the world in a diaspora, a desire to maintain that unique and shared identity has been a cohesive thing. And maybe I'm painting with too broad a brush, and that's fair. If I'm wrong on that, just let me know.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think that I've always called it collective identity, right? And it's not just like this collective identity around holidays, but Jews celebrate when a Jewish person wins a Nobel Prize. Jews gasp in horror when a serial killer turns out to be Jewish. We have this collective identity, whether we want it or not. It's just Jewish population is 2%. I know that people seem to think that it's bigger than that. It's teeny. We are a teeny, teeny segment of the global community. And I think that that's why it's so important. If I give it up today, now we're 1.9% or whatever. It's just every generation has got to choose Judaism for themselves. And there's so many other things that you can go out there and choose. So this collective identity, I think, is a really important part of it. I'm telling you, sometimes it works for your advantage, and sometimes you're like, oh crap, no. No, not me. But it's both. It's both.
Yeah, I mean that well, and that's the nature of choices overall. A thing that I am envious of, though, and I think I learned this when we went on a field trip when I was a kid to a Holocaust museum in Richmond, Virginia. And they were explaining some of the holidays and how people participate, whether they believe things or not. They still will show up to the synagogue on, any this or that uh, holiday. And I was like, wow, that doesn't match at all with my experience growing up as an evangelical Christian. And it is a from my point of view an enviable part of Jewish life, is that, like, yeah, maybe you have opted out of this part or believing that part, but you can still engage and be a part of the community and share that identity. I'm
Judaism's
glancing.
confusing,
What's
right?
that?
And Judaism's confusing, and that's a whole nother conversation for another time. Like this idea of what is it? Is it a people? Is it a religion? Is it a culture? I mean,
I mean, the answer is
it's
yes, right?
exactly, and it's baffling to not just people who aren't Jewish, but to people who are. You can be Jewish and not believe in God. Okay, you can be Jewish and just eat a bagel. That could be your identity. You could be a Jewish and observe as many of the 613 commandments as possible. There is just a huge spread of what that means and how people plug in. But to me, the important thing is plugging in.
I could look. I'm not Jewish, so far be it for me to police your language on this. I can understand saying complex, but I think a lot of the confusion may come from people trying to understand Judaism from a point of view that's not Jewish, rather than accepting a Jewish point of view on its own terms. And this particularly is a thing that a lot of Christian interpretation, and this is a thing I've wrestled with very publicly here on this podcast, a lot of Christian interpretation does not accept Hebrew Bible texts on their own terms. It forces them into another bag, and that's just that just creates all kinds of problems. But it's one of the reasons that, and I know I brought up Christianity several times, but it's one of the reasons that I wanted to learn about Hanukkah from someone who celebrates Hanukkah and is teaching others within that tradition about Hanukkah. And I'm glancing at my questions and I'm noticing I've forgotten to bring up dreidel. What's the deal with the dreidel?
I wanted to keep talking about this.
Oh, go on. Then go on. Yeah, no, it's
No, it's super interesting. I mean, and I do think like we can kind of wrap it up. Like, Judaism is just so fascinating, right? Because it is so many different things. Okay, let's talk about dreidel because it's fun and why not? So part of the tradition is a game where you can spin a top, and the top has four sides, and each side has a different letter on it. The letters spell out Nes Gadol Haya Sham, which means a great miracle happened there. Again, tying us back to this idea of the miracle of the oil and God's presence in the Hanukkah story. But it's a gambling game, which explains a lot of things for me. Everybody gets a certain amount of beans. You push your beans into the pot. Each side of the dreidel has a number of beans. Either you get half, you have to give some, you get nothing, or you win them all. Some people can play with coins. My mom always made us play with beans, which also explains a lot. But the cool thing is in Israel, if you buy a dreidel, it does not say Nes Gadol Haya Sham, which is a great miracle happened there. They've changed the last letter in the land of Israel to say Nes Gadol Haya Po, a great miracle happened here. The rules of the game are the same, but that letter gets switched, and I think that's really cool. Like, that's kind of an interesting, fun little fact about the game. But a lot of kids will play. We always played, and then you can do other things. Spin the dreidel upside down. The other thing that's really popular is chocolate gelt, which are like little coins, which goes back to the tzedakah tradition. Like there was this tradition of giving coins, either also to charity, but also to your kids. And so chocolate coins have become kind of part of the tradition. They come in like a foil. You break them in half. Well, we could talk for an hour on how you open a chocolate coin, because that in itself is probably a tradition. Past family to family.
hold on. So that's like a disputed area.
Well, do you peel back the foil all the way around the chocolate coin and lift off the top layer, or do you snap the thing in half and then it easily opens up? Yeah. Oh, total dispute.
Well, I
Should
mean,
have been
having eaten chocolate coins, I say you peel the foil off.
very tenderly around the edges.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, crack them, dude. Then you
you
can
crack them.
oh
That's
my god,
okay.
then you can eat so many more in the
That's
same
okay.
amount of
You're allowed to be wrong.
time. Probably some tractate in the Talmud that tells you exactly how to do
and then
it.
another that disagrees with that, though, right?
Right, exactly. That is the Jewish way. Yes.
What is it if you ask 10 rabbis for their opinion, you'll get 11?
Yes.
Is that the okay?
You know that funny story that there's that story about the that we just I don't even know where the story came from. That there's a guy on an island. He's been marooned on this island for a long time, and when they come to rescue him, they're like, "Why do you have two synagogues?" And he says, "Well, this is the one I built that I go to, and this is the one I would never go to."
I have heard that. I think
Jewish way, man.
somebody told that on here. There is a Christian version where it's like three churches. It's like the one I go to, the one I'd never go to, and then that's the Methodists or something. I forget how that one goes.
Funny
Uh,
thing in the Jewish tradition is he probably gives money to all of them.
well, look,
You know?
as your dad said, that's the only way they'll stay around.
Exactly.
Yeah. Um, wow, I did not know that opening uh, chocolate coins would be an area of controversy. But honestly, that is just more my perspective of like, well, no, why would you break it? You would carefully take the foil off of it. So that may just be a personal
It's
preference thing.
delicious no matter how you do
Yeah.
it.
Um, the colors. Okay, so I'll say this. I don't buy Christmas wrapping paper for Christmas gifts. I buy Hanukkah wrapping paper because I think it's prettier.
Okay.
And maybe that's appropriation and it's unacceptable. If so, whatever. It's what I do. I like it better. How did those colors come to be the Hanukkah colors?
It's funny because I think I use Christmas paper because it's more readily available. It's just so much easier to buy. You try and get something that's like plainer red and just call it a day. Um, so blue and white, right, are kind of the colors of Judaism across the board. Um, I think blue and white has become the tradition in Hanukkah. I don't even know. Like, I mean, I guess I could go back and say, did it come before or after the state of Israel when the flag was determined to be blue and white? The flag of Israel is based on the prayer shawl that people wrap themselves in, that also is blue and white. And all of this kind of comes back to the Bible in Numbers, where the high priests wore a garment. And although the colors are, who knows exactly what it was? Was it a blue? Was it a purple? Was it something in between? We know that it was made from a sea snail. And so that color, that bluish color, has become that color. White then combined with it as the color of purity, godliness, holiness. And so blue and white became this, not just the color for the Israel flag, but then adopted for Hanukkah. Um, I read somewhere that silver was added to it just to make it more glittery, which is awesome. Pretty and awesome. I don't know that silver has any greater meaning than that. And I'm not so sure that anybody, if you ask the average person buying wrapping paper, did you know that the blue is reminiscent of a sea snail's shell that was used in biblical times? I'm sure they'd be like, no, pretty.
And if they say
Um,
no, do I get to tell them you can't buy that wrapping
oh,
paper then?
please do. Please tell them where it came from. But that's where it comes from. I mean, blue and white has just kind of become the colors of Judaism overall. I think all coming from that tradition.
I'm also realizing that. So you've mentioned the latkes being an Eastern European thing, and that it's a donut in Israel. But then there are some other places that you talk about that their Hanukkah celebrations that are specific to other geographical places. Do you mind walking through some of those?
No, I actually pulled the book because I thought that you were going to ask that. Um, so, okay. For how much did you say it is to see me holding up the book? Hey, go sign up so you can see me holding up the book.
Yeah, $5 a
Um,
month. It's $5 a month, guys.
$5 a month, you can see this. Look how cute it is. Look at that nice cover. It's so beautiful. The illustrator is so nice too. Um, in the book, I go through some of the other traditions, and again, I think that these traditions come from a lot of the external cultures where we live, what we have access to, right? I talked about potato latkes because that's what they had access to that was a cheap food, right? If you live somewhere else, it may not be. For example, in Sephardic, like Middle Eastern countries, they're more likely to have used oil candles than the waxy candles that we use here, right? And there's a whole tradition of how you light the oil lamps, but that's very much their cultural tradition. I mean, the lights are the lights, and the lights are the same, and the story is the same, but based on where you are and what you have access to, that's a big part of it. There's like a fun tradition in Morocco where the kids can collect leftover wax from the candles and make a bonfire and then do a celebration where they jump over the bonfire for good luck. My husband's Persian, and it kind of reminds me of one of the things they do on the Persian New Year, which is also like jumping over this bonfire. So that may be all part of it. There was also in the book a tradition called Hag HaBanot, which is a celebration of Jewish women that can get also kind of tacked onto this. So there, a Jewish heroine, Judith. Judith also fought against a king who wanted to destroy her city and convert the Jewish people. And so some people in North Africa and the Middle East and even in Europe have added this tradition of Hag HaBanot. We haven't, but now every year since I've written the book, I feel like I should because that's cool. And why not add one more reason to celebrate women? Because, I am one. So that's cool. But yeah, so there's all these other traditions in other places. And I think as hard as we hold on to our core, Judaism has always been heavily influenced by the communities where we live. So
Yeah, I think as interesting as the like unifying of a global people, there are these little diffuse, kind of changes that happen
mm-hmm.
over the place. And I'm sure within American Judaism, because America is so dependent on migration here, I'm sure there's a lot of just onesie twosie little things that you would find if you went to someone's house and celebrated Hanukkah with them. But like, oh, my family's Eastern European, but you guys are from Spain and you do this thing this way.
Yeah,
So yeah,
for sure.
I did not want to leave that out. But speaking of leaving out, because this is kind of the time where I start to land the plane. Was there anything in the book you were hoping I would ask about that I have not yet brought up?
That is a good question. I feel like I have jumped. I don't think so. Would there be anything else that I would like if I could tell somebody one thing about Hanukkah? Like, what would I tell them? Kind of question. Um, no, I mean, but I would hope that your listeners find an opportunity to have a night of Hanukkah, celebrate with a family, watch online, watch a Hallmark movie. If that's what you got, try that. Um,
I don't remember what it is, but I'm gonna find it and link it. I did watch one. It was like two Jewish families that ran diners or bakeries, and they had the same recipe, and they didn't realize they were the same family. I'm gonna look it up. I don't normally like Hallmark movies. I really enjoyed this one. I watched it with my wife a couple of years ago, so I will link that in the show
Oh,
notes.
you definitely do that. And I love these. And I love that people are trying. And I love that people are trying to understand. Some of them get a little bit weird. Like there was one, I think, last year or maybe the year before where it was like, it's Rachel's first Christmas. And everybody I know is like, what are you talking about? If you live in America, Christmas is everywhere. It cannot be Rachel's first Christmas. Like, no. But, I hope that your listeners will like learn a little bit about another tradition. It's also a biblical tradition. It comes from these books that were not canonized. I hope that they'll dig a little deeper into the story of the Maccabees and who they were and why they are growingly controversial figures being zealots. Um, I mean, each of these holidays is so interesting to me, and there's so much like meat behind them. This is a great opportunity to scratch that surface and learn a little bit more. So I really appreciate you having me on the show.
It's been a pleasure to have you. The movie's called Hanukkah on Rye. That's what it is. I will have that linked in the show notes. Um,
And I'm
I
sure the
just,
writers are going to love you for it.
yeah, I was afraid. It's a 2022 Hallmark movie about rival delis, and their children fall in love, of course. So, what would you recommend other than this book, which this will be linked in the show notes as well? What would you recommend that listeners read, watch, listen to get a better understanding of Hanukkah? Assuming that most of my listeners are not Jewish.
Rugrats Hanukkah is a good one. No, it used to be that there were so few, right? You could really tell people like, oh, every year at religious school, we'll all watch the Rugrats Hanukkah. Yay. But now there are a lot more of them out there, and there's some really good kids books on the holiday. Um, you know what, Jared? Can I send you a list kind of off the grid and you can add it to the comments?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's do that because I'd like to curate something that also has some interesting, more academic kind of resources. So give me a couple days and I'll come up with some interesting things for your feet.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. Okay, well, my final question: what do you read for fun?
So I try not because I'm like deeply entrenched in writing children's books, and I love mystery novels. So much love mystery novels, but I try not to read the same sort of thing that I'm writing. I'm always worried about that I might pick up something kind of accidentally. So I read a lot of biographies. Um, I like to read things about people overcoming the odds. I pretty much will read anything about people climbing Mount Everest. I do not know why. Maybe that's a past life like Echo. I don't know. Maybe it's an aspirational goal that will never happen. Um,
Not with
and
that
right
attitude.
now, exactly. Not with this cardiovascular shape. Nope. Um, and lately I've been reading these Japanese novels that I like a lot. Did you like Water Moon was the one that I just read? I don't know. I also adore time travel. If your people want to send me anything that's time travel recommended, I adore time travel.
Well, what's a good time travel thing?
What's a good
Yeah,
like
like what
in
would you put? Well, I feel like in sci-fi lately, time travel does not it doesn't have a good rep anymore. So what's a good example of like here's something someone made about time travel?
okay, so I'm forgetting the name of the book. I just read a Japanese novel where the guy um every day he wakes up on the same day, like one of the, what's it called?
Like
Groundhog
Groundhog
Day.
Day? Okay.
But his grandfather is murdered every day. And so at first, he kind of ignores it because this is his condition and it goes away. But then it comes back. That was really good. Of course, I cannot remember the name of it. Um, I am trying to think of what constitutes a really good time travel. Something like Outlander. Um, I like something that circles back on itself. I've written time travel. My first series is for kids called Blast of the Past, about kids who time traveled in the past and meet famous people in history. That was one of the first ones. For movies, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is the go-to. There's nothing better than
I have to disagree. Hold on. Hear me out. Hear
that.
me out.
Okay.
Bogus Journey is better than Excellent Adventure.
Do you really think so? I thought it got weird in the middle. It got so weird.
But I'm weird, and I think that's why I liked it more.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. I don't know. It got so weird.
I watched that movie so much as a kid. Have you seen About Time?
Yeah, I liked that one too.
That was one of those just like listeners, if you just want to feel happy, that's About
Yeah.
Time. Like there's sad bits in it, but it's just nice, and it's a guy learning and becoming better. Yeah, it's just I really like it. I worry now because I haven't watched it in probably, I don't know, almost 10 years. I worry that I'll watch it and be like, oh, this does not hold up. But until I do that, I highly recommend. Highly
If you want
recommend it.
another Hallmark, the Biltmore Christmas time travel one is awesome. Not
Okay.
Hanukkah, sorry. The Biltmore Christmas is
I
really
will.
good.
I'll put that on my wife's radar because I know she likes the Hallmark
Okay,
movies.
so tell me, I'm going on vacation. What should I read?
I mean, honestly, the first thing that comes to mind, I just finished recently, Hogfather by Terry Pratchett.
Okay.
So Terry Pratchett writes these humorous fantasy novels called the Discworld series. Discworld is a flat planet that's flying on the backs of 4 elephants that are riding on the back of a giant tortoise, and Hogfather is like their version of Santa. Uh, but Death has to fill in for the Hogfather. Death is a recurring character, and it shows a very deep appreciation for human belief from someone. Terry Pratchett, I think he was an atheist. He was, like one of those very scientific minded people, but he's demonstrating an appreciation for the things that people believe and how that makes them human. And like I think I've talked about it recently on here. I love it. I love Terry Pratchett. He's really funny, but he's also uh, very loving of the subjects that he writes about. Also, there's a series by Naomi Novik called the Scholomance series. It's spelled weird. I can send it to you if you want. There's a school for children with magical abilities. There are no teachers. The school gives them their assignments, and there are like dark magical creatures that are trying to eat them because they want to eat the magic in the kids. And the kids basically have to figure out a way to help the school protect them. And then, yeah, there's 3 books, and it goes on
That's
outside of the
awesome too.
school.
Oh my god. Okay, I'll take both of those. I have already packed the new Thursday Murder Club book.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen. Now it's a Netflix movie, but I'm addicted to those. I like a good mystery too.
I
Okay, no,
may
I'm gonna
I
do
may
those.
watch that because we really do like watching mysteries, but I don't read many of them.
I read a lot of them, and I read a lot of YA because that's kind of I write young. I tend to write younger, but I read a lot of like middle grade or YA novels. So
I honestly, I'm often drawn to reading those because they end up being really good evaluations of what it means to be a person.
me too. Okay, we'll switch a reading list. Great. And
Yeah,
I've got some things to read for my vacation. Those both sound great to me.
yeah, okay. Well, unless you have anything else, I'm going to call this one good.
We are good. Thank you
Okay.
so much again for having me on the podcast. This was super fun.
Thank you for being here. Hi, it's Jared again. So we finished up Hanukkah, and next week we're going to be in the Gospels with Mark Goodacre, learning about the fourth synoptic gospel. Yeah, this is. I don't think I ever thought or came across an idea that the Gospel of John was completely ignorant of, or the author or authors of the Gospel of John were completely ignorant of the synoptic gospels. I do think I had some misunderstandings as to what the synoptics were. And uh, so this book and this conversation were very helpful in clarifying what that term synoptic means. And yeah, so if you're listening for free and you want to hear this episode now because you like this preview, that's absolutely possible. For $5 a month, you can hear episodes early um, through the end of 2025. It's about 9 days, although the episodes kind of get compressed as the end of the year approaches. But next year, it'll be 12 days. I figured dropping Patreon episodes on a Monday and then the following week's Friday would be the free release of that same episode. I feel like that's a pretty good distance between, and it helps me kind of figure out what my promotions are going to be. But again, if you want to hear stuff early, $5 a month will get you that on Patreon. The link is in the show notes. That is all from me. If you get a chance to love someone, please take it. Take care.
Yeah, I mean, well, so the title of the book, I have it here, is The Fourth Synoptic Gospel. Not actually my title. Oh, there it is. Yeah, thank you. It's not actually my title. My publisher came up with the idea to call it that, and I kind of liked it because it's provocative. Because the reason why it's provocative is of course, because we all know, we've all been taught, I've taught this myself, that there are three synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and that John is different. And the reason we call the synoptics is because John is so different. So obviously this is a highly provocative title. But the reality in it is that I just kept staring at my synopsis of the Gospels on my desk. And for those viewers that don't know what a synopsis of the Gospels is, it's basically a book in which you put the three synoptics side by side in columns so you can compare them easily. And it helps you diagnose which one is the first, which one is copying off whom, are there any hypothetical texts, and so on. Do you know what it's actually called? The synopsis that's sitting on my desk. It's called Synopsis of the Four Gospels. That's the actual title of it, of the most popular. That's not just some weird synopsis. That's the mainstream synopsis that all scholars and students use. And I thought, well, John is synoptic frequently. Yes, he's less close to Matthew, Mark, and Luke than they are to each other, but John is frequently side by side with the synoptics in a gospel synopsis. So technically, to me, there's no question that John is synoptic.